It all starts with Izumi Miyamura, a pretty antisocial guy with long hair who is bullied by his classmates. He's probably an emo otaku, or maybe he thinks he's unique and edgy. Ugh, this pig is so disgusting. But hey, we need to take a little detour from the quiet weirdo, because while he's our main character, we also have a girl named Kyoko Hori. In Miyamura's class, Hori is seen as the unattainable girl who always rushes home, avoiding socializing. People might think she has a secret boyfriend or job. However, Hori goes home to take care of household duties like cleaning, cooking, and looking after her brother because her parents are often away for work. Despite wanting to hang out with friends, she remains undeterred and continues her chores. Damn it, call God. But the truth is that Hori goes home just to switch into mom mode, since she has to clean, cook, pick up her little brother, and do a lot of other things. This is because her parents are usually not home due to their work schedules, so all of this seems to affect her quite a bit, since of course she would like to hang out with her friends, but this doesn't bring her down at all, so she keeps doing her household chores. Son of a bitch, call God. Then we see that while she was at home doing chores, her little brother named Soda comes home with a big bruise on his face, bleeding from his nose because he broke his face while playing. Someone took the trouble to pick him up and send him home. That someone turns out to be a really handsome guy with a pretty eye-catching look, and for some reason, Soda wants this guy to stick around as a brother-in-law. So Hori invites him over to hang out to thank him for helping her little brother. After a brief chat, Hori realizes the kid is Miyamura in casual clothes. Sota likes his new friend. At school, Hori tells Miyamura he can visit anytime, surprising him. After that, it turns out that Sota has become quite fond of his new brother-in-law, friend, so he asks his little sister to invite him to hang out at her house. At school, Hori tells Miyamura he can visit her house anytime. They both hide things. Hori is a homebody, and Miyamura hides his piercings to avoid school issues. After this, Miyamura often visits Hori's house to hang out with her brother. His family owns a bakery, and despite his school appearance, he wears knee pads for convenience. But hey, they both have something in common, since Hori hides the fact that she's a homebody, while Miyamura hides that he's a total heartthrob. He does this to avoid problems, since going to school with so many piercings isn't allowed, so he doesn't hide it because he wants to. From that conversation on, Miyamura starts going over to Hori's house regularly to hang out with her little brother, and at the same time, we get more interesting details about our beloved main character. It turns out he's not that weird. His family owns a bakery, and despite wearing glasses at school and basically looking like a smart kid, he actually wears knee pads to get around easily, so that's quite the bait. The next day, Hori finds out there's a sale at the supermarket, but she won't have time to get there because a student council meeting came up since she's actually part of it. So she tells Miyamura to step up and buy the eggs, and the guy rushes to go. On the way, he decides to start taking off his uniform to tease the girls who are checking him out. Just as he's leaving school, he runs into Yuki Yoshikawa, a classmate and Hori's best friend, who is surprised to see him in his cool mode. Once at Hori's house, and while they were talking, our main guy confesses that his friend saw him in his chat mode, to which Hori, playing the toxic girlfriend role, tells him she doesn't want anyone else to see him like that, since that's something only she knows about him. I know what everyone will be thinking. Toxic girlfriend? Wake up, dude. That's a huge red flag. Get out of there, soldier. But Miyamura doesn't hold back either, and tells her that he also doesn't want anyone else to see her in her mom mode, so I guess they're a perfect match. So after laying the groundwork for what will clearly be a relationship in the future, we learn that Miyamura not only has piercings, he also has a huge, thick tattoo. Oh, you silly girl, you scare me, you fool. And this is of the utmost importance since there will be swimming classes, and if he is seen, the manager will send him to the lobby, although luckily for him he didn't have to take the classes, thus explaining to us that the kid is not a cholo as such, but that his piercings and tattoo were done in an impulse of youthful idiocy. So remember friends, if you're going to get a tattoo that you can't show off and as a result you're going to get called out, it's best to wait. Little longer. Then we see that Hori and Miyamura spend a lot of time together talking at school, which catches the attention of Torishikawa, a friend of Hori's named Yuki, who is feeling a bit jealous since it seems he likes the future waifu of our main guy and of course wants to know if they're a couple, making it pretty obvious that he feels like his chance has been stolen. So because Miyamura, who is Katoru's crush, likes Hori, they start a nice friendship until our main guy finds himself in front of him to strengthen that friendship. In war, any hole is a trench. Nah, just kidding. He actually did it to show off his tattoos. As days passed, they grew closer until the guy with colored hair confessed to the girl he likes. He asks Miyamura for permission to pursue her. Miyamura picks up Sota, giving Hori time for Toru. Miyamura feels insecure, fearing he'll be a third wheel. Hori returns upset, thinking they're incompatible, and she's only nice for her brother. She confesses her feelings, asking him not to decide alone. Meanwhile, Toru ends up in the friend zone. So after classes, Miyamura offers to pick up Sota to give Hori time to let Toru confess to her. But once he's at home with the little brother, our main guy feels insecure about the situation, thinking he'll be a third wheel and that he won't be able to go to his dear friend's house anymore. But then when Hori finally comes back, what ends up happening is that she cancels on him because she's really upset, thinking that the quiet guy thinks they're not compatible, and that she doesn't like him at all, and that she's only been nice to him because she looks after her little brother. So she confesses that she cares about him a lot, and tells him not to make these decisions on his own. Oh, and by the way, poor Toru got sent to the friend zone. F for the homie. The next day, another curious problem arises, as we finally get to see Hori's mom relaxing at home. She finds out that Miyamura is going to her house on July 24th, so with her mom's sixth sense, she starts to suspect that there might be a grandchild on the way. However, she has a question and it's a little joke. Her doubt is that Miyamura is a last name, so her daughter doesn't even know the name of the guy she likes. Now Hori will try to find out, and I say try because she thinks it would be pretty weird to just come out and ask him directly. But hey, it seems all her attempts to find out failed. But not all is lost, since there's one last plan. To wait for Miyamura to come to her house. And when she introduces him to her mom, she'll tell him his full name. But her mom, being all sneaky, sends her out to buy some things so she can talk to the main guy alone. And I always skip this part, okay? No! Apparently, Jori got so desperate that she ended up asking him his name directly. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, his name is Sumi. So you knew? I knew it, but she doesn't like you. But Jori doesn't. Sometime later, the girl, due to how surprisingly studious she is constantly called by the student council to help with paperwork and other little things, which is why she hasn't been sleeping well and is pretty tired. One day, as Miyamura was leaving school, he bumped into Remi Ayazaki, a member of the student council who was carrying a lot of paperwork in a box, so much that for some reason she was willing to ask our main guy to throw away a notebook she had with her. The next day, a fight broke out because the student council president, Sengoku Kakeru, his assistant Sakura Kono, and the president's girlfriend Ayazaki blamed Hori for losing a finance document. Fortunately, Miyamura saved her by revealing he had the document. Jori was overwhelmed helping the president. She once looked down on him, and he threatened to expose her unless treated equally. Minor events occur, but the key is Miyamura's past. Quiet and antisocial, he had no friends in school. Without Hori, he might have stayed that way. So recalling this growth makes him melancholic. And all this because Jori was all worked up helping the president. It turns out that in the past she used to grab the kid, and he threatened her that if she didn't help him and treat him as an equal, he would reveal that she was going too far with him. Then a bunch of unimportant things happen, but what's really important is that we get to see Miyamura's past. Because he was quiet, shy, and very antisocial, he didn't get along with anyone, so he had no friends throughout elementary school, and the situation continued throughout middle school. If it hadn't been for Hori, he probably would have stayed that way in high school too, so remembering all that character development has made him feel a bit melancholic. And as the last school year begins, he feels like he's left out of Hori's circle of friends. So during break, he decides to talk to Toru about it. Or rather, ask her what she thinks about him. Toru tells him that he's a bit weird, but it's okay for him to be that way because he's his friend and she cares about him as such. One day when Hori arrived really early at school, she sat down to have a juice in the cafeteria, and to keep her company, Remi sat with her to chat a bit. And since some women can be pretty toxic, the conversation quickly escalated to whether Hori was dating the main guy, because if not, Ayazaki is keeping an eye on her since she noticed that the guy is quite handsome. Although it's a bit strange for her to say this since she claims to be the president's girlfriend. Holly tells her that they're not dating, but she still won't let anyone steal her guy because he's hers. But in the end, all of this turned out to be a little joke from Remi, one that went a bit too far, since everything they talked about got relayed to her friend Sakura, and in turn, Toru found out about it too, because he was being a gossip. So now that Sota is in elementary school, the main couple spends more time alone together, and it's clear that certain romantic feelings are starting to show between them when they hold hands. In light of this situation, Toru is not happy at all, so one day when he was alone with Miyamura, they started talking about it. But the main guy was obviously denying everything until they suddenly ended up throwing punches at each other. The good thing was that it was just a friendly fight, and their friendship only got stronger from it. Then we see a pretty interesting interaction between Toru and Kono, who is always working in the student council. And well, it's more than obvious that the girl with glasses has feelings for the fallen soldier, but that won't be relevant for now. The important thing here is that one day, while Miyamura and his buddy were having some ice cream, he invited Senku to join them for a bit. And since the heat was terrible, he suggested they could go to the student council room to cool off with some air conditioning. Because of this, the little friend group started hanging out pretty often. Due to the heat, Miyamura and Hori are sent to buy some drinks, while everyone else starts gossiping about how cute those two are together, and that they might even be doing some stuff while they're out getting the drinks, which makes Toru really tense. But when they come back, it turns out they did get a little cozy, but it was just Toru's soda, so don't be gross. One day, while our main guy was at Tere's, a very peculiar topic of conversation came up at Hori's house. She found out that Miyamura isn't embarrassed to wear wigs since she saw his tattoos just like Toru did. That's why she wonders if there's anything that makes him shy, and she even wants to take everything off right there to see if he gets embarrassed. To give an example, he tells him that the other day he ran into a friend named Koichi Shindo, who was curious to see that he had been spending a lot of time with a girl, which is why he hadn't come over to say hi. Miyamura confirmed to Shindo that Hori was his girlfriend. This embarrassed him, and he promised to clear up the misunderstanding. Later, he would meet Shindo. Their friendship is peculiar. Miyamura treats Shindo poorly. We see how their friendship began. Sometime later, today he would finally meet Shindo in person. And by the way, their friendship is a bit peculiar, as our protagonist treats him a little poorly. But this will be an important detail for something that will happen in the future. Then we can see how their friendship started, and everything indicates that Shindo's friends didn't want him to get close to Miyamura, even though he told them not to be so jealous since he wasn't going to distance himself from them just because he had a new friend. Later, Hori catches a cold, but insists on going to school, claiming only fools get colds in summer. Her brother convinces her to rest and calls Miyamura, who visits to care for her. We glimpse Hori's past, feeling neglected by her busy parents. With a fever, she feels down and asks Miyamura not to leave her alone. He reassures her and confesses his love before leaving. Shocked, she pretends to still feel sick to avoid school. Here, we'll see a bit of Hori's past and how she didn't feel good about her parents working so much, leaving her alone at home. Because of the fever, she's feeling pretty down, to the point where she starts asking our protagonist where he's going, hinting that she doesn't want to be left alone. Eventually, he convinces her to rest and tells her that if she needs anything, she can just call him. Expectedly, while giving her instructions, he confesses his love to her and then leaves as if nothing happened. The girl is shocked, not asleep, unsure what to do. To skip school, she fakes sickness. Sota went to school and saw Miyamura with a girl. Hori gets mad, thinking he's a player. The next day, she avoids him, but Toru notes her odd behavior. He surprises her after class, asking if she's uneasy. Focused on the girl he was with, she threw books at him. Sota, being the good kid he is, went to school, and on his way home, he noticed that Miyamura was walking with a girl, holding her arm tightly. This made Hori really mad because she thinks Miyamura is being a player. So the next day in class, she does everything she can to avoid talking to him. But Toru tells our protagonist that his girl is indeed acting strange. So, like a true silverback, he surprises her after class and asks if she's feeling uncomfortable about the confession, even though she's just focused on finding out about that girl he was with. In fact, she was so angry that she threw some books at his face. Later on, we find out without realizing it that the protagonist only made the situation worse, as she was just Shindo's girlfriend, and when he called her by her name, it caused a conflict that made Hori even more jealous. This misunderstanding would be cleared up once Miyamura went to return the books she threw at him, and of course, she apologized for what happened. But before moving on to the confession, a guy named Kyosuke would walk into the room like he owned the place. And this guy is actually Hori's father, despite how young he looks. He starts teasing Miyamura for a bit before asking him if they are a couple, to which his daughter replies yes, confirming that from that moment on, their relationship would officially begin. Then they find themselves alone. And while they talk, they both say they want to get to know each other much better. Usually with this kind of confession, most romantic animes would wrap things up. But that's not the case here. Then the news of these two dating reaches Toru through Miyamura, and he gets really down about it. But hey, life goes on. Even though it was impossible for him to feel completely okay, he just had to deal with it. Still, Sakura Kono noticed his sadness. That's right. The girl from the student council, Kono, clearly has feelings for the fallen soldier. While she was watching him, Remy shows up and notices that her friend is acting weird, staring out the window. This is when the girl with glasses gets a bit aggressive, telling her that she wouldn't understand her situation because she's cute, hinting that she's feeling insecure about her dear friend. After this little argument, the girls make up when Remy tells Kono that she's an amazing waifu, and Kono finally confesses that she likes a guy, and that's all for now. On their part, the newly formed couple is getting along wonderfully. Miyamura gets along great with his beloved in-laws, so much so that he can even stay over to sleep and shower with his new dad. Until one day, some gossipers saw Hori and our protagonist leaving her house together, which started a rumor going around, although it wasn't much of a rumor since it was canon. This triggered all of Hori's classmates to make fun of her for her terrible taste in partners, which annoyed the friends of our main couple. But this didn't seem to matter much to Hori because she was feeling really happy with her guy. And all of this would obviously reach Miyamura's ears, who, to avoid the teasing and the negative comments about his girlfriend, decided to cut his hair and have a somewhat cooler appearance at school. This would cause him to become more popular among girls, and of course the joke stopped, since now the boy is really hot. So now that her face was uncovered, being popular brings its consequences, since Hori was quite jealous that the girls were noticing her boyfriend, when before they didn't even ask for the time of day. So hypocritical. That's true. Although this change led to a classmate, amazed by Miyamura's transformation, approaching him to chat. This guy's name is Sioyura, and he's quite lively and cheerful, and we'll see him hanging out with him more often. On his part, Shindo didn't like Miyamura's change at all, as he thought he looked much better with long hair, at least to him. He mentions this to the main couple, whom he had invited to his house to give them some weird flavored candies. In this situation, when Hori was caught off guard, our protagonist stole a quick kiss from her, even if it tasted like cheese, because he snatched a weird flavored candy from her mouth with that move. Now that the situation at school has calmed down quite a bit, thanks to our protagonist's new look, there shouldn't be any more problems. Or at least that's what they thought. Until for some unknown reason, there's a second-year girl with black hair who keeps following Miyamura, even waiting for him outside the bathroom. This girl is named Honoka Sawada, and she spends her time stalking our protagonist, giving the impression that she has feelings for him. But in the end, she spills the beans and wants him to break up with his girlfriend, asking when their relationship will end. However, Miyamura tells her no, that he won't break up with his girl. And here comes the big revelation. Sawada followed them. She reveals she loves Hori, so she can't accept Hori dating a weird guy. This makes things tense between Sawada and Miyamura, who can't be alone with his girlfriend because Simp competes for her. The worst part is they are neighbors. They live next door and found out they lived meters apart. This makes the situation between Sawada and Miyamura incredibly tense, who can no longer be alone with his girlfriend because little Simp is always looking for a way to compete for her. The worst part is that it turns out they are neighbors. They literally live next door, so that same day they found out they lived just a few meters apart. Sawada forgot her house key inside and was left stranded outside, but Miyamura, being the good friend he is, let her come into his house and even offered her some cake. This is where we find out that the girl had a brother, although she regrets being honest and says it was just a joke. However, later on, our protagonist would confirm with his mother that her brother did indeed exist, and that he passed away last year. As a result of this, the relationship between Miyamura and Sawada turned into more of a sibling-like bond, since our protagonist ended up intimidating some guys who wanted to date her, also giving us the detail that she's not good at talking to boys and that they make her quite uncomfortable. So from this point in the story, things change a bit, as we will now focus on other characters like Yuki, who we can see is obsessed with finding a magazine. I'm just mentioning this because it will be relevant later on. The really important thing is that one day, while Toru was walking with a trash can, she bumped into Sakura Kono, you know, the girl with the green hair and glasses who unfortunately got stained by the garbage while Toru went back to get something to clean the stain. Kono seems interested in knowing if Yuki is dating that guy, friend, to which she tells Kanel that they're just friends, and you can quickly see Kono's joy upon hearing that they aren't dating. Toru comes back with her gym jacket and lets the girl with glasses take it, so she doesn't have to walk around with her shirt stained. Later, Kono arrives at the student council room to ask the president what he likes most about Remy. He responds that he feels motivated by his desire to protect her, implying that he strives to be stronger for her. After this interaction, Kono returns her jacket to Toru and takes the opportunity to offer her some cookies that she made herself. They are so delicious that they promise to meet every day to enjoy some together. We will also see something curious about Yuki, since a while ago I mentioned that he had been looking for a magazine for a long time, but when he finally finds it, he gives it to another person despite taking a long time to search. This leads her to feel jealous of Kono, who has been getting really close to Toru lately. Feeling envious of how well her rival in love's cookies turn out, she decides to ask Miyamura to teach her how to make some desserts, hoping to win her man's heart through his stomach. After a week of practice, Yuki hasn't improved much with her pastries, as she keeps burning them constantly. So, she hides this from Toru because she wanted to surprise him later with a nice dessert. But he shows up unexpectedly and tries one of the burnt pastries, telling her that they are okay, but asking if he can really try them when they come out better. Then we see the main couple again, as Miyamura has to leave for about 5 days due to a family trip. This makes Hori a bit anxious since she hasn't heard anything from her boyfriend because he forgot his charger and there's no store where he can buy one. So she just has to endure 5 long days without knowing anything about him. So when our protagonist finally returns and steps out of his house, he runs into his waifu, who, in tears, runs off to find him because she missed him so much. By the way, there's something I left out until now for a reason, and that is that whenever Miyamura and Hori are home alone, their fun is watching scary movies together. Hori's friends advise her not to watch those kinds of movies with him, as it just kills the mood since her dear boyfriend gets really scared watching them. So when one of those movie nights came around again, Hori pretended to be scared and tried to get closer to her guy, but since he's really jumpy, he just ended up feeling scared from all the jump scares he kept getting. Since she couldn't change the mood, the girl got salty and went to her room to throw a tantrum. Miyamura went after her to ask what the heck happened, and after talking about the situation, they concluded that neither of them should change because that's how they fell in love and there's no need to pretend to be scared or anything like that. So they took advantage of the fact that they were alone and ended up getting it on, doing the dirty. After this moment of emotional dependence, we will see Miyamura's past again, in a dream, where he talks to his past self, a version he seems to completely hate. However, over time, this might change for the better until he finally wakes up crying. One day, Hori has a very particular request. She has noticed that our protagonist is somewhat rough with his close friends, a bit harsh if you will, so she asked him to treat her that way because she likes being treated badly. Indeed, Hori is that kind of girl, but Miyamura is incapable of being mean to her. He even tries to act that way with his classmates but fails miserably. So, to fulfill his girlfriend's little whim, when they go to drop off some things in the lab, he takes the opportunity to pin her against a corner and talk to her harshly. As you can imagine, she ended up all flustered and wet like a river. Yuki got a love confession from a classmate. She leaves him waiting 4 days, finding it hard to reject him. Her friends plan for someone to pretend to be her boyfriend, so the guy knows she's taken. Toru pretends to be her boyfriend. When they turn him down, he's quite the catch. Akane Nagi, with a godlike face, is hard to reject. But we know why. Akane has vision problems, leading to funny situations. He's a good guy fitting in with the group. One day they meet a guy from another school who knows our protagonist, Makeo Tanihara, friendly with Miyamura. To reminisce, he teases him again. Today, she defends him, scaring Tanihara away with punches. We know who's in charge. We also find out that Akane has serious vision problems since he can't see very far without his glasses, which leads to some funny situations where he confuses everyone. But he's a good guy who gradually starts to fit in with the friend group. One day, while the main couple was heading home, they ran into a guy from another high school who recognized our protagonist. His name is Makeo Tanihara, and he was quite friendly with Miyamura. In fact, to reminisce about their middle school days, he started teasing him again. But today, it escalated to the point where she defended her guy in front of him, scaring Tanihara and his friend away with a few punches. So, we definitely know who's in charge in this relationship. Later, Shindo meets up with Tanihara because, yes, these two are friends, and he sees that he got the crap beaten out of him. It seems that the latter has something going on with Miyamura. Later, we see that as Hori is leaving a store, she runs into the guy who humiliated her with his friends. But instead of confronting her, they all show that they're a bit scared of her. And from a distance, they watch as our protagonist slaps him because, yes, the girl's unusual tastes keep increasing every day. And here, I need to clarify something. Tanihara starts having a rather peculiar dream, where he finds himself locked up with Yukimura. They talk about loneliness and rejection, though not in a literal way. It turns out that the guy is regretful because back in middle school, they started treating Miyamura badly when one day all the school rabbits died because Tanihara forgot to feed them. But instead of owning up to his mistake, he blamed someone else, and you can guess who he blamed. That day, something changed with Inosu, and that's how our protagonist's life turned into a nightmare because of Tanihara's lie. However, in the present, Tanihara regrets what he did and tries to get close to him to become friends. Little by little, this is working out because Miyamura holds no grudges against him. On another occasion, our main couple runs into each other, and you can tell that the tension between Miyamura and Tanihara has eased. But Hori is jealous of this. She even finds out that her boyfriend tends to be much closer than she imagines with Shindo, who, by the way, happened to be passing by today. Every day she becomes more convinced that her guy is a charmer, as everyone wants to be with him. Once again, we go back to Yuki, who one day while out shopping with her sister, runs into Kane, you know, the guy who rejected her. Her sister finds out about this, and she's really surprised that her sister turned down such a handsome guy. Oh, and by the way, rumors start spreading that Toru and Yuki are a couple because they still haven't stopped pretending to be dating. To clear up the doubts, Kono directly asks Yuki if she's seeing him, but she decides to keep up the lie and says yes, that they are indeed a couple. However, the lie starts eating away at her inside, so she talks to Remy about it, and Remy tells her that she won't say anything if Yuki admits that she likes Toru, but she doesn't say anything. But why? Yuki, in response to this, would start skipping school. And from her sister, we learn that the blonde has a kind of habit of not being able to express what she wants, a flaw she's had since she was little, and because of this, she always ends up feeling bad for not doing anything about it. After the conversation with her sister, she decides to check her phone messages because, yes, she had turned her phone off during her tantrum. It turns out that with a message from Toru, she finds out that Kono has confessed to him. So the next day she goes to school, talks to Toru alone, and we discover that he indeed rejected the beloved glasses-wearing waifu because he thinks she's too much woman for him, which absolutely breaks her heart. But Sengoku comforts her and admits that he's happy to have gotten rid of a burden. So all of this concludes with the fake relationship still intact, but nothing happened. They didn't become a couple or anything at all. What a terrible service. Now let's focus on another character, the green-haired one known as Yura, who is gradually integrating into the friend group with Akane. We can see various interactions among this group of friends, like how they argue and get along. We even see Miyamura feeling a bit jealous that Akane might steal away his dear friendships. But well, they end up becoming good buddies. Now it's time to stray a bit from the topic, as Sawada is making a list of his classmates' power levels. Just kidding, it's a list of how much he can tolerate certain classmates. Remember, he doesn't do well with people, and the one he gets along with the least is Yura, since he's really outgoing, social, and has a strong presence. So he goes ahead and tells him to his face that he can't stand him. Then we see that Yura has a sore throat, so he can't talk much, so he starts to stay quiet. In one of those situations that happen, he helps Sawada carry heavy equipment to the laboratory, but when he doesn't say a single word, the girl thinks that by telling her that he was so mean, he had upset her, although the misunderstanding is quickly cleared up when the guy finally feels better from his throat and speaks normally again. In the story, Motoko, Yura's sister, is stressed due to low grades, preventing her from entering her desired high school. A teacher mocks her grades, but her brother comforts her and asks Hori to help her study. They chat to relax. Meanwhile, Yuki and Toru's situation escalates as rumors of attraction spread to the press. On his part, her brother comforts her, and the next day, he asks Hori to help her study so she can improve her grades and her chances of getting into the school she wants. Honestly, not much happens here, as they just chat to relax for a bit. Now let's get back to Yuki and Toru, because guess what? The guy has started to feel really attracted to Yuki, so that little gossip has already reached the press and Yura. Toru tends to bring her crush over to her house all the time to play video games and hang out. Now we return to Yuki and Toru, since guess what? The guy began to feel very attracted to Yuki, so said little gossip has already reached the press and Yura. Toru tends to bring her crush over to her house all the time to play video games and hang out. Oh, and by the way, the guy has it made because he lives in a super fancy neighborhood. You send. That day, things were different because Toru was in a hurry to take Yuki to her room. It wasn't inappropriate, but a curious cleaner interested in their rush for gossip. Yashiro often sees them together and bothers Toru with questions. She warns them against doing anything future fantastico, or she'll tell the lady of the house. Toru, charmingly, assures her she won't try anything with her around, hinting she'd make a move if the girl weren't there. This woman is called Yashiro, and she has been seeing this pair of lovebirds together for a while now, so she is always bothering Toru with lots of questions. She threatens them not to do anything future fantastico because if they do, she'll spill the tea to the lady of the house. And Toru, being all charming, tells her that she won't try anything, knowing that she's there, hinting to her friend that if the girl weren't around, she'd totally be down to make a move. But anyway, putting aside the other relationships in the anime, let's get back to what really matters. Because it's Christmas, and Hori is feeling a bit anxious because she doesn't know what her future holds. There are only a few months left until graduation, so her family is also a bit sad because Miyamura won't be spending Christmas Eve with them. Fortunately, he shows up to deliver a cake that was ordered from his bakery, so it seems like it was all planned out. After hanging out for a bit at his in-laws' house, he leaves and Hori goes with him. These two start talking about their future and how, despite graduation, they need to stick together. To which our main guy responds that his wish is to marry her, and she replies that when they do get married, will make him extremely happy. Oh, how nice! Finally, it's time for graduation, and everyone has to clear out their lockers. Meanwhile, the student council members suggest that everyone go on a little end-of-year trip. But what's really important here is that our main guy starts to reflect on everything that's happened up to that point, as a series of coincidences led him to where he is now. However, after talking with Hori, he realizes that coincidences don't really exist, and that his destiny was probably to make a lot of friends. Finally, the day of graduation arrives, and the press stands up to give the speech for the graduates. Miyamura sneezes really loudly, so much that everyone starts laughing. After the ceremony, Sengoku chases our main guy around the school for ruining his speech right before the group photo. Miyamura is having an existential crisis where he runs into his past self and promises not to ignore him again since it seems he always ignored his past version. Then her father arrives at the school because he wants to see our main guy and his daughter graduate. Along the way, we find out that everyone starts to clear things up with the people they've rejected, so we see Motoko passing by Yora, thus learning that she achieved her goal. And well, that's how Horimiya ends, with everyone happy and looking forward to entering the next stage of their lives. Everything continues with Hori, who starts explaining that before graduation, there were a lot more things that we didn't get to see, like a school trip to the city of Kyoto, which happens just before her boyfriend's haircut. Everything seems to be going wonderfully. The place is really nice, but not everyone is having a good time. Miyamura is worried because once they get to the hotel, he'll have to shower in the public bathrooms, and obviously his tattoos are going to show. My 5 centimeters of pure ink. At this point, the only option left is to adopt the plan of any otaku, which is to not shower at all. So once they get to the hotel, everything would go as expected, until the group of guys that our main guy is with ends up stuck outside their room because Shu fell asleep inside. Luckily, they got in, but it's shower time, and Miyamura is avoiding it. I don't want to shower, man! Ishikawa understands and helps by making an excuse. Andres showed up. I don't want to shower, man, even if I smell like a dumpster. Ishikawa understands the situation and decides to help Miyamura by coming up with an excuse so that no one gets suspicious, and the excuse is to say that Andres, the guy who comes every month, showed up. Wait, what? And surprisingly, no one questions it. They probably all think the dude is just a weirdo or something. But anyway, the important thing is that the excuse worked like a charm. As Miyamura was walking down the hallway, he ended up running into Hori, and he told her what had happened. Since she doesn't want him to be all dirty, she suggests he shower in the girls' bathroom, taking advantage of the fact that no one is there. I always skip this part. After his shower, our main guy would question the girl about why she just let him use the bathroom like that, and he's curious if she would do the same for another guy. To this, he would respond that he's not like the others, but no one is going to question why he's not in their group. So he starts throwing out his best pickup lines at the girl, making it clear that something could happen now. Captain, I want you to kiss me. Class is over. However, after a while, the main guy would say it was a joke. But if you want, it's not a joke. and he would leave the room thanking her for letting him shower, although Hori, on her part, seemed to still have a little hope that something more would happen. The next day, the girl would try to offer Miyamura the shower again to see if something would happen this time, but during the night, he found out that he could shower after 11, so he could shower alone and wouldn't have to make her uncomfortable with his presence. What a stupid way to miss a hint, but honestly, it could be any of us. Anyway, after this, we'll appreciate the boys' trip, ending with some photos and more beautiful memories from their school life. It's now that we make a little time jump, parkour style, because we can see that Miyamura is sporting his new look, which leaves Remy so impressed that, whether by accident or not so accident, she ends up soaking him with a hose. After this, it would be time for a visit to the nurse to dry him off, because you know that after a little while with wet clothes, you end up all stuffy. And there, the pink-haired girl would notice that the main guy never takes off his uniform completely, and we all know it's because of his tattoos. But the girl touches his chest, thinking that maybe it could be a reverse trap, right? Very mop-like. Suspicious of someone from the student council, Miyamura decides to ask his friend Nishikawa for advice, and he comes up with the best idea than to dress him in girl's clothes. You know, to have a really good secret to keep that isn't the real secret, something that Miyamura rejects because he doesn't want to be considered a rag. And then they would start arguing about which type of uniform looks best on girls, and that conversation would be overheard by President Shangoku, who would chime in with the argument that girls look prettier in gym uniforms. Come on, join this debate by leaving in the comments what type of uniform you think looks best on girls, and it doesn't matter if you're a girl, Mija, comment too. All this debate is overheard by Hori, who pays close attention to her guy's preferences, but now a new problem arises. Soon they'll have to take a mandatory swimming test in class, which Miyamura opposes along with Sengoku, who also doesn't want to do it. So after a lot of excuses, since it's clear that neither of them wants to go through with it, they get exempted from the class in exchange for spending an entire afternoon in detention cleaning the office, which they gladly accept. So remember, it's better to be punished than to show off your tattooed body to Kirisan. 2024, and now we make another parkour time jump, and it's time for the sports festival where neither Miyamura nor Sengoku want to participate again. But this time, the group will split into two teams, and the guys will do the physical tests while they have their own cheerleading team made up of girls. After some insistence, Corey convinces his girlfriend to join the race. Meanwhile, Sakura feels clumsy as she struggles with cheerleading, but Yuki helps her catch up. She shines in cooking class, her strength. Sakura, on her part, feels like a total klutz because she can't learn what she needs to do as a cheerleader. She's just a little bad at sports, but luckily, Yuki helps her catch up with her routine. Later, she would have her moment to shine in cooking class, but her team has Sengoku and Remy, who are making a total mess of things. They even manage to burn the water. In the end, they get some curry, and the pair of useless cooks admit they're terrible at it, saying, "We're such idiots." They praise Sakura's skills, saying she will surely be a great wife in the future. But at the same time, they praise Sakura's skills, saying that she will surely be a great wife in the future. Miyamura would start to mentally prepare for the sports festival, eager to see his girl in a skirt, but his disappointment would be huge when he sees that she's not showing anything, because she's dressed in the boys' uniform. Nah, better swim, girl. That's why I'm going with the other one. On a normal day in class, Jori looks off into the distance and sees her sweetheart being really friendly with another girl, and she gets hit with a wave of jealousy, thinking, "I'm gonna cut you off, dude." So later at the girl's house, Miyamura would have to explain why he's talking to other girls when he has her. But how toxic, girl? The next day, Jori would tell Yuki what had happened, to which she would tell him to tone down his intensity because his scarecrow won't go with another woman. So, after a few moments, Corey starts painting a sign that her friend asked her to do while she went to a meeting. That's when Maisuchi arrives. And seeing the girl he likes sitting there all relaxed, showing off her legs, he throws her a jacket to cover them up and then leaves. After a few moments, Miyamura would arrive, and seeing that his girl was wearing another guy's uniform, he would understand what jealousy feels like because he would also go into my girl mode. On the day of the sports festival, the first to compete would be Jori and Remy, but the latter proposes a bet. The winner gets to keep Miyamura. The race begins, but the chestnut-haired girl starts late and struggles with obstacles. Miyamura cheers her, but Hori finishes last despite a boost. Remy enjoys first place, possibly as a strategy, while Sawada's turn fails. In the boys' race, Nishikawai Shu ties. Cheerleaders perform with Hori's team showing a masculine style, and Remy and Sakura's team a charming feminine style. Remy led. Sawada's rope pull failed. Nishikawai Shu tied in the boys' race. Cheerleaders performed. Hori's team was masculine. Remy and Sakura's team was charming. Sakura thanked Yuki. Miyamura was saved for the treasure hunt. Next is the boys' race with Nishikawai Shu, ending in a tie. Now for the cheerleaders. Hori's team cheers in a masculine way, while Remy and Sakura's team offers a charming feminine display. Sakura thanks Yuki for advice that saved their performance from embarrassment. Miyamura was saved for the treasure hunt, competing against his little baby to find the thinnest guy, Goku. They both chase him and decide to deliver him together, as love conquers all. After this, Sakura would thank Yuki for his advice, because thanks to this, the presentation was not embarrassing, since if you remember, the one who should have been given the race was Miyamura, but he was reserved for a different event, which would be the treasure hunt. In this competition, he faces his baby, both seeking the thinnest guy, Goku. They fight over who delivers him, but love unites them. The final event, the Riders Battle, involves 3 guys carrying one to grab a ribbon from a rival. Miyamura and Sengoku compete fiercely, neither gaining an edge. Our protagonist distracts his rival by claiming a girl is behind him, leading to his victory. And so the time for the last event arrives, which would be the Riders Battle. That typical event where 3 guys carry one, and he tries to take a ribbon off the head of the rival rider. So the final fight would be between Miyamura and Sengoku, who give it their all to see who is the best, but neither seems capable of getting the upper hand on the other. In a moment of inspiration, our protagonist decides to distract his rival by telling him there's a girl behind him, which surprisingly, he believes, and because of this distraction, he loses the match. That's what you get for being a nice guy. The winning team is today's, and after a very fun afternoon, we would see that Miyamura's dream, and maybe all of yours, would come true. And his girl would show up in a cheerleader outfit as a reward for being a hero at the festival. Today we eat, then the days go by, and it's time to worry about studies, because the exams are coming up. This time, Miyamura, Hori, the father-in-law, and her brother-in-law all sit at the table with the kotatsu, that cozy thing you put on tables so when you sit down, you're all wrapped up and warm. However, studying takes a backseat when everyone gets all cuddly. When they wake up, our couple realizes that everyone's legs have become entangled under the table and they can't get free, so they have to cut them off with a saw. Nah, just kidding. After a while, they all manage to untangle themselves easily. Easier than your ex, I mean. The next day, they have to study with Sengoku, because strangely enough, Hori's dad took him home because he thought the young Hakanija was cute. Dad is back for another study session, and our protagonist is sleeping under the kotatsu, while his waifu takes the opportunity to check his phone like any toxic girl would. There, while reading the messages, he would discover a very compromising love message from someone. But who is the home-wrecking cat? It turns out that the romantic message was sent by none other than Shindo, who messed up when he sent it. Today she can't hold back her anger because she doesn't know, and she wakes up her little man to confront him about being unfaithful. It's not what you think, Mihai. I swear by Diego Maradona. Things then calm down, but the girl continues to throw a tantrum. So to please her, Miyamura puts a tangerine in his mouth and feeds it to her. And that was how he calmed his wife's anger. So remember, if you want to calm a toxic girl, just pass her a slice and then the spit. Here we are in Eriza 2024, and now we move on to our couple wandering around when they meet Sengoku's dad, who picks Miyamura up in his arms and tells him to watch out for Hori's family because they're all a bit crazy, not caring that the girl is right next to him. And I'm sure you're wondering why this is happening, and it's because both gentlemen can't stand each other. But that doesn't stop Holly's dad from capturing both father and son to take them to his house for a close moment. Let's play the cookie game, right? Obviously, this was a bad idea because they don't get along at all, and the atmosphere gets really tense. That's when we find out that they don't let Goku have a girlfriend because he needs to focus on his studies, but as we know, he's dating Remy. So since Jori is mean and Miyamura is a bit clueless, they start talking about pregnancy, because the president already has a girl. But their dad doesn't hear this because he's busy fighting with Donald Lucian. And now we're switching to the protagonists of this chapter, as the focus shifts to Shu and his little sister, Motoko. The latter is in love with a boy from her class, but since her brother is super ultra protective and jealous, he tells her no bringing guys home. Next, we see the sister telling the boy that she wants to have a study session at home, and as expected, the only obstacle for the date is her older brother. So, Motoko decides to send him a message saying to come late because a friend will be there, and she doesn't want him to interrupt them when things get good. Obviously, this makes the boy think the wrong thing, and he quickly heads back home. Just then, the little guy arrives, running into the two siblings arguing. But well, they can't just kick the guest out. From then on, the boy named Kitahara would start visiting the house more often, which makes Motoko really happy, but there's just one little detail. Her brother is constantly watching them. And to top it off, the guy seems to have a great admiration for her brother, maybe even something more. Whoa, it suddenly turned into yaoi. And since things started to get a bit weird and uncomfortable for Shu, he would tell his friends the context of what was happening at home, leading to a few misunderstandings. The next morning, the typical cliché happens. The green-haired guy wakes up late, so there's no time for breakfast. He runs out with a piece of bread in his mouth, which causes him to bump into a girl. And that's how he meets his mother, because from that destined moment on, they would be together forever. You know this cliché. Everyone knows it, or maybe not, because nothing would happen since Shu bumped into Yuki a few minutes later on the way to school. Ishikawa and Miyamura would join them, only for the four of them to find out upon arriving at school that they wouldn't have class first thing in the morning, because it's the day when new applicants come to check out the school. Don't go too far, Prof. I live 4 hours away. So after a while, Shu would discover that Kitahara was around, and feeling nervous about the guy's presence, he would try to hide from him. But things go wrong because he ends up being discovered by his friends, and now he has to confront the guy, telling him not to bother him. This would be seen by a teacher, and you can imagine the green-haired guy would get scolded for being rude to the applicants. But this would backfire because the guy actually likes being talked to harshly. Call me trash, teacher. And well, now we find ourselves on the weekend, where the guys had organized a sleepover at President Sengoku's house. The only downside to the situation is that the president's room is really small. Literally, with just 3 guys in there, there's no space left for him. So, everyone is woken up by Shu to sort out this predicament, deducing the most logical solution. The skinnier ones should sleep together. That's how Miyamura ends up lying down with Sengoku, and Sengoku starts to wonder why the protagonist never takes off his shirt. So he takes advantage of the darkness to try to undress him and find out what's hidden underneath. Just at that moment, Shu, who was still awake, sees that things are getting out of hand. And from then on, no one would trust that redhead again. That guy is getting too handsy. But fortunately, the misunderstanding was cleared up, but there's still uncertainty about what's hidden underneath. Once at school, Sengoku is still determined to find out what Miyamura is hiding, so he comes up with several plans to see him without a shirt, but those plans end up failing. The president and Remy share a moment. She asks to hold hands, they kiss, but he declines, saying they're in public. The president and Sakura leave school. They discuss Sengoku's breakup, suspecting infidelity. They meet Nishikawa and Shu. The president asks them not to tell his boyfriend. Let yourself be loved, dog. And so we move on to a new day, where we see the president and Sakura leaving school together, which leaves Hori and Yuki deep in thought. They explain why Sengoku broke up with his girlfriend, suspecting it might be due to infidelity. Later, this couple runs into Nishikawa and Shu, who have the same suspicions. Unfortunately for them, the president notices and asks them not to tell his boyfriend about this. But then, what the heck is going on? Sengoku gave Sakura some cookies that Remy loves, and his plan is to give them to her as rewards every time she doesn't want to put in the effort at school. So now it's time to focus on someone new in Sakura, Sakura herself. So let's see what her day-to-day life is like. This girl is studious, quiet, and shy, but she has a secret taste. She loves anime. Her favorite manga is about ninjas. When she went to get the next chapter, she found no copies left, which upset her. Luckily, Yanagi offered his copy. That's a man's gesture. So when she went to get the magazine where the next chapter would be published, she found that there were no more copies left at the bookstore, which really depressed her. But luckily, Yanagi was there to offer her the magazine he had. That's what a man does. Furthermore, the girl would tell Yanagi that he is very similar to an effeminate boy who appears in the manga, and this is how a friendship between Estiu-san would begin. But yes, Sakura being so close to the handsome boy would feel very bad, because they are constantly compared, because one is beautiful and the other is not. So to calm the girl's insecurities, the guy would tell her that she shouldn't feel bad about other people's comments since she is gorgeous. Hey, little one, don't say that. You're perfect for being someone who can always solve any problem, and not just any girl can do that. And now we would focus on Yuki, who has a romantic encounter with Yanagi in the library. But the girl could hardly care because remember, she's already in love with someone else. And speaking of this love interest, the blonde would later run into Ishikawa, whom she would ask to give her some warmth. But hold on, don't get the wrong idea, it's just that her hands are cold, although the guy would take the opportunity to warm her up completely. That dude really takes advantage of the bug. Then we see a calm afternoon where Miyamura was walking through the school when suddenly a scarf falls at his feet. It turns out that some girls threw the soaked scarf out the window, and seeing this, our protagonist wouldn't just stand by, so he would give the girls a warning. Here it would be revealed that not only is the short girl being bullied, but she also struggles a lot to make friends in her year, getting along better with the third-year students. Sawada, teased but kind, saw her classmates' art club needed members. She planned to move it for visibility. With Goku and Remi's help, the marketing thrived, earning her classmates respect. In the afternoon, I would try to move it around so it would be more visible. And with a little help from Goku and Remi, the art club marketing would be a success. This gesture would reach the ears of the other girls in her class, who from then on would start treating her with respect for her kindness. This is where we have a little moment dedicated to Yanagi, who lost his contact lenses, just like in the meme. Because of this, his new friends, the main group, try to help him as much as they can, like Ishikawa, who tries to help him look for the contact lenses, or Hori, Remi, and Miyamura, who warn him while pretending to be other people, that the bus won't arrive at the expected time. And now we find ourselves in a new day where the group of friends sits down to criticize Sengoku because he writes in a very particular way when it comes to chatting. But who are we to judge? So let's move on to Yanagi, who is already famous for always being late to class. That's me. And that's why his teacher is fed up and orders him to stop doing it. But there's a problem. He can't stop, arguing that it's the fault of his cursed watch, since he can't tell the time properly to arrive on time. That's when Hori suggests that everyone should help him by calling him at wake-up time so he can manage his time better. And that's how this idea ends up working, because thanks to one of Sengoku's messages, Yanagi manages to wake up on time. Honestly, I just want to sleep. In the afternoon, we would see this same pair talking about how the president wants to be closer to him, but his attitude changes quite a bit around familiar people. Later, the president wouldn't understand why everyone is being so flattering and nice to Yanagi, and it's not that he's a bad guy, he just doesn't know the reason. Now then, even though Goku's attitude becomes a bit informal, there shouldn't be any problems for these two to become friends. Right? Well, there is an obstacle, and it's that Yanagi has a slight suspicion that for some time now, the redhead wants him to be the owner of his paychecks, and that's why he tries to keep a short distance from him, because he doesn't want to get caught up in any awkwardness in the hallways. Goku mentions a theory to Ishikawa and thinks that since he's really smart, maybe that's why he doesn't get along well with Yanagi, since they just ran into him having fun, and maybe he connects better with simpler people. So the president tries to act a bit clumsier to impress the new guy he wants to be friends with, but it backfires because it gives the impression that he swings the other way, and it's a lie. Amid all this confusion, and the president's obvious attempt to get along with Yanagi, the latter tells Sengoku that he doesn't have to change to please him, because he's already a really good person just the way he is. But unfortunately, this beautiful moment ends soon when Miyamura arrives making a strange comment about the Prezi, leaving everyone with the suspicion that he likes the movie Brokeback Mountain in a rigged way. And now the focus shifts to the teacher in the class, whose name is Shinya Shuda. While he was in the teacher's lounge, he decided to take a little nap, and this was taken advantage of by some girls who used the opportunity to make him look fabulous. During class, everyone wanted to comment on his hairstyle. Well, yes, the teacher started teaching without knowing his appearance. However, no one dared to tell him the truth because the teacher is very intimidating. But the whole situation would change when Yuki arrives late to class because she couldn't hold back her laughter upon seeing the teacher, which would trigger laughter from the other kids in the classroom. So after his most humble moment, the teacher needed some material that he forgot in the classroom, but to access it, he needed a key that only Professor Nakimir has, who is known for being a bit forgetful and also somewhat clumsy and antisocial. That's when the teacher finds one key, then another, and another, and another, as it seems he had a ton of school keys at Tsubata. Seeing this, Yuki approaches him to say that maybe his lab coat has a hole in it, and being the good girl she is, she would fix his coat so the keys wouldn't slip out. Outside the window, Ichikawa would watch the scene with jealousy, but he wasn't the only one. Professor Shin was also watching with him. The first one thought the teacher was stealing his girlfriend, and the second one felt he lost the chance to be with a student, since this teacher is the type who says, "If there's hair, there's no crime." After this, while walking down the hallway, the teacher overheard some students talking about eating something really delicious right there, and since it sounded suspiciously suspicious, he went in to see why they didn't invite him, only to discover it was our trio about to eat a cake. So Shin ends up looking ridiculous for being so suspicious, and to solve the situation, he tries to punish the students, which he can't do because they didn't do anything wrong. So to let the matter go, he tells them they can store their cake in the chemistry classroom's fridge. And that's how we move to a night at school. And yes, a night because Hori and Sengoku fell asleep in the classroom and ended up getting trapped. Professor Shin comes to their rescue, but he's not willing to let them go that easily, as he suspects that the two have been getting cozy for several hours. So he decides to give the girl a thorough inspection. Amidst all the nonsense, the chemistry teacher then lets the students go home, staying alone with the professor to have a very serious talk. The next day, the teacher looked brand new, and above all, really happy, like a worm in a good way, thanks to what the teacher did for him. This incident would also reach the ears of Miyamura, who was worried but not for his girl, but for Sengoku, since his girl could have resorted to shady things to save herself. Our protagonist is quite the joker. And speaking of him, we now move on to a little arc where we can see that someone else is interested in him, a guy named Watabe, who shamelessly takes pictures of him and seems really smitten when he talks, making it clear to us that there's something more going on there. Everyone wants to give this guy advice, but since Miyamura is a bit oblivious, he doesn't catch the hints. That's why at Hori's house, she tells him to be careful because he carries the scent of another man on his clothes. After that peculiar interaction, our protagonist was left wondering if just talking to or being close to someone really makes you pick up their scent. So, he started sniffing all his buddies, even the shy one, whom he invited over just to give him a good whiff. In gym class, we see that this guy Watabe is really obsessed with Miyamura, so much so that he has a folder dedicated just to him, even wishing for his masculine charm. All of this is overheard by Ishikawa, who listens in horror. And that's how we move to Hor's house, where she brings up her complaint about the smells again. The girl fusses about the smell, not the protagonist's fault. Her drama earns harsh words. The brunette says, "Oh yes, Miyamura, hit me and talk to me mean." But it doesn't happen. Her guy hugs. There she is, the brunette saying, "Oh yes, Miyamura, hit me and talk to me mean." But nothing like that happens. On the contrary, her guy hugs her to calm her insecurities and get a little whiff of her. But Hori, who wanted him to be the typical tough guy from Latin America in her drama, hits her boyfriend so he learns how she likes it, and he ends up crashing against the wall. So now the couple isn't talking because of that incident, and neither wants to give in to an apology, even though this time it should be the girl who does it, since she hit her boyfriend just for the heck of it, and her reason for being upset is that he treats her too well. Without any words. Since neither wanted to give in, Miyamura talks to her, discovering that she's upset due to moodiness and overreacts to small things, in contrast to our protagonist, who is kind. But well, after talking a bit, the couple finally reconciles, and the matter is settled.
Time passes, and Valentine's Day is getting closer, so Sawada wants to know about Hori's tastes to give her an appropriate gift, while the third-year girls debate what they should give the boys this year. Anyway, we have to move on to who seems to be the protagonist of this arc, Sawada. During recess, a girl approaches her to ask for advice because she wants to give a chocolate to someone in third year. Sawada starts thinking about all the third-year acquaintances, forming a theory about the possible guy, but it turns out that he wasn't for any of the most attractive ones and that he would be a piece of cake for the humble Shu. Let's remember that the short girl hates the green-haired boy, so it's difficult for her to give him a gift because she doesn't even know him and she wouldn't know how to help with this, so the best option is to give up. But the girl, for her part, isn't willing to accept a no for an answer, so with no other choice, Sawada does her little research on the ideal chocolates the girl should buy. And since she's having trouble with the chocolates today, she decides to ask Sakura for help. Who is the best at baking? Sakura lends her an easy cookbook, so that it won't be difficult for her to prepare something homemade. And even though it didn't turn out perfect, her family ends up approving the chocolates. No, it's kind of a mess, girl. Is this how we get to Valentine's Day, where everyone would receive their friendship gift from Miyamura, who would then go to his girl's house to get his big gift, if you know what I mean, right? Well, obviously the chocolates. Don't be so clueless since I already know you little piggies. Shout out to the Akiri bros, and especially to those born in November, wink wink. Sawa would disappear to give her crush her gift, and even if Hori manages to do it, she would take it as something between friends and nothing more. At the girl's house, Miyamura brings cake for his girlfriend, and Hori gives her chocolates. They enjoy a nervous but pleasant afternoon. A flashback begins with Hori's parents. Kyosuke, a tough guy, helps Yuriko at school. Sengoku is the student council president. Kyosuke grows closer to Yuriko, but Brittany-chan, a troublemaker in love with Kyosuke, disapproves and threatens Yuriko. Then a new day arrives, but in the past, because this is the start of a flashback focused on Hori's parents. Here we meet Kyosuke, a guy known for being tough and a bit of a bad boy, who one day meets a certain lovely girl at school, helping her carry some heavy boxes, and her name is Yuriko. We also see Sengoku here, but as the father acting as the student council president. This is how we would see the days go by, and the albino guy would start getting closer to the brunette. But this relationship wouldn't be looked upon favorably by a girl we'll call Brittany-chan, because she's a bit of a troublemaker who's in love with Kyosuke and won't let a girl as ordinary, studious, and plain as Yuriko take her man. Brittany-chan stops Yuriko at the school exit to threaten her, even ready to throw some punches. Kyosuke wants to intervene, but the brunette tells him that she can handle it on her own, and then she slaps the girl hard. Whew, I'll take her home to mom. Is this how we now find ourselves in the present? And Mr. Hori mentions that he always listened to his girlfriend back then. Why are you still acting like a dog? And seeing the injury that Miyamura has, he realizes that his daughter is just like her mother when she was young. Punishment prize. So after a little glimpse of how Jori looks in her brother's oversized clothes, we see what the atmosphere is like in her house. And it turns out that the girl is quite aggressive with everyone, with Miyamura being the only one who can calm her fury. This is when we see a scene where the little brother, Suta, tries to help with the household chores like washing the dishes. But this isn't well received by Hori, who scolds him and tells him he's too little to help with such dangerous things. This triggers a tantrum from the little brother, so then the girl starts crying too, and Miyamura manages to calm the situation by saying that it's okay, that everything is fine since they just love each other and talked a bit harshly, but that it's all in the past. The thing is that later Jori would tell her boyfriend that that way of fixing things isn't right because she was a bad girl and needs a punishment. I know where you're going with this. You want me to give you a few punches? Then a new day arrives when Miyamura would go to Hori's house to pick her up. Did I say to pick her up? But this time the girl wasn't ready because she stayed up late the night before, and now she was feeling like she couldn't do much of anything because our protagonist was so sleepy. As a good boyfriend, he decides to help her get ready for school by putting her hair up in a bun. But when she was already awake, she looks at herself in the mirror with a pathetic face because she didn't like her hairstyle. Despite this, she keeps her opinion to herself so as not to hurt her boyfriend and decides to leave it like that. When they arrive at school, everyone is impressed, but not in a bad way. They even start complimenting her on how great it looks on her. So now Miyamura will be in charge of fixing her hair, because he must have magic fingers to create such an impact. And that definitely interests Hori. The next day, we see Sengoku cleaning the student council room along with Sakura, and the funny thing about this situation is that Sengoku has a lot of trouble cleaning because he's really weak and struggles to move little boxes that the rest of his friends can handle without breaking a sweat. In fact, everyone even starts to theorize that Remy is probably the one who wears the pants in the relationship because she's the strongest. After this, Shu sees a postcard wishing for a trip to the beach, but well, we already know that this won't happen. This is how we return to the end of the first season, at graduation, and Hori is feeling down as school ends. This contrasts with her boyfriend's development, as she initially had little free time due to home duties and studies, making her unhappy seeing others have fun. Gradually, her efforts to spend more time with friends expanded her social circle, bringing fun moments and more people into her life, thanks to Miyamura's positive impact. Graduation arrives, concluding their story as they continue their romance in college. But little by little, the effort to spend more time with her friends made her group expand, giving her fun moments that brought more people into her life, and this change was thanks to none other than Miyamura, as his presence had a huge positive impact on her life. And so the moment of graduation arrives, concluding the story of this couple who will now continue their romance in college. But wait, don't leave so soon. First subscribe to me and then follow me on my social media. Did you do it? Well, now we continue, as we get to see one last scene where Hori goes to the hair salon and ends up with a bad haircut. Who hasn't had that happen, getting accidentally left bald at the salon? So seeing this, our protagonist decides to sacrifice himself for the relationship by going to the hair salon to get a buzz cut too, if he made his girl the prettiest one in the relationship. So remember, if your girlfriend gets a buzz cut, give her a nudge and tell her you won't forgive her because she still looks super cute. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how the first 2 seasons of Horimiya end. I hope you liked this video, and if you did, give it a thumbs up and share it with all your friends. If you'd like to see any of my upcoming videos, don't forget to subscribe. I suggest you follow me on my social media so you can stay updated on my upcoming videos. I'll leave the link in the description. With nothing more to say, see you next time. Bye.